So Eddie, we're in Sheffield today for Anthony Joshua's open workout. Obviously a change of opponents. Could you just tell us about the last sort of 24 hours for you? Just run us through kind of how it happened, how you heard about it.
Yeah, about 6 o'clock last night, Rob McCracken actually called me and said, well actually no, what happened was I missed a call from Rob McCracken and then I got the text from a trainer, which is the worst text you can ever get. Call me ASAP, urgent, right? That normally means our fighter's out, or he's injured, or he's cut, or something, you know. He says, have you heard about PULEV? Is it true? I said, what? He said, I've just seen on the internet that he's got a shoulder injury, he might be out. So I said, well, I spoke to Calla 20 minutes ago. He didn't say anything. Called Calla, couldn't get through. Calla texted me and said, I'm on the phone to PULEV. We have a problem. So anyway, then he called me back. I said, what's the situation? He says, he's got a shoulder injury. He wants to fight. So don't panic, let's see. I said, well, how bad is it? He said, the one doctor's saying he can't fight. So I said, look, you can't have him fight with one arm. So, you know, you get ridiculed by the fans and the media. It's hard enough fighting Josh if you're 100%, let alone 50 or 60%. So they spoke to another doctor and we decided, myself and Calla, after speaking to the doctor, and PULEV, again, he had to pull out the fight. About 7 weeks ago, I just felt that, you know, PULEV, a little bit temperamental, and with 78,000 tickets sold, we just needed a little bit of a contingency plan. So I knew that the next in line for the mandatory was Carlos Takam, whose promoters I know, and spoke to him and said, look, you know, I'd like you to train for the Joshua fight, but what I'll do is, if you don't get the Joshua fight, I'll put you on in Monaco the week after. So you get paid whatever, but if the opportunity comes, you'll be ready, you'll fight for a world title. So annoyingly, Takam has had about 9 weeks and Josh has got about 9 days to prepare. So, but it was good, you know, it was quite a seamless transition. Obviously it was a bit of a nightmare, but probably within an hour we had signed contracts and, you know, messages to the IBF, all done. The IBF rules state it goes down the list, so Takam was next to be asked. We agreed a deal and all systems go for October 28th.
So your kind of side deal with Takam, that's not common practice for you when it comes to mandatories, and is this the first time you've done that? You know, looked down the list and gone, let's get him ready just in case?
No, there's been other similar circumstances, maybe not where, you know, you've looked into it so clearly, but you might have had a conversation. This time we did a deal and we had him ready, and you know, it was a good deal for everybody because he was going to box in Monaco if not. Now he gets a lot of money to fight for the world title. Takam's a different kind of animal to PULEV in that PULEV is made quite a lot of money. He's a bit of a king in Bulgaria. Do you know what I mean? Takam's a very tough man, and this is his chance to win the world title. So he grabbed it with both hands. I phoned Josh. He was like quite excited because he knows Takam and he knows he's a bit of a handful and he likes to bring the fight. Rob McCracken wasn't so keen because Rob's meticulous and, you know, he's trained for 10 weeks for PULEV and a certain style, which is sort of awkward and tall and, you know, fiddly. Now he gets a much shorter guy who comes in like a bulldog and comes in low and whips him over the top with a lot of pressure. So it's not ideal, but it's boxing, and you know, you have to sometimes adapt. Josh wants to fight. He's excited by the fight, and you know, I think it's going to be a good fight.
There is an argument, I don't know where you stand on it, that Joshua's fan base and the way he's crossed over has meant that a lot of the people who are interested in him and bought tickets to Wembley and to Cardiff didn't know really much about PULEV, and actually didn't really care who PULEV was, and they don't actually care about who Takam is.
It's an event, isn't it? It's an event. People are going to watch Anthony Joshua. They weren't necessarily going to watch KUBRAT PULEV, but we have a responsibility to put on good fights, and PULEV is the mandatory. Now Takam is the mandatory. These aren't guys that we've just like plucked from like the 100th best heavyweight in the world. These are guys who are good heavyweight fighters, handfuls as well. It's Carlos Takam. The best way to describe Carlos Takam is a right handful. That's what he is. You know, PULEV, I think he's one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world, and Takam is a top 10 heavyweight in the world, but styles make fights. And I think you get more rounds out of Takam. I think that's the general consensus. A lot of people I've spoken to, Adam Booth particularly, says this is a much harder fight than PULEV. But, you know, AJ's the star, but you've still got to put on good fights because people have got to come back. Obviously, it's a big undercard as well. But AJ is a phenomenal draw. 78,000 people coming to the Millennium Stadium to watch him fight. It's an incredible achievement.
I remember Takam was kind of mentioned as an opponent maybe 18 months ago before Joshua won the world title. So have you had talks? Have you looked into that one before?
Yeah, Josh. Before we fought Charles Martin, Takam was a guy who looked like we might get a final eliminator against. But then we went out and fought Charles Martin. So we've always looked at Takam as an option. He actually nearly fought Dillian White as well in this fight. If we could have made that an IBF final eliminator. Again, he's been ready for this fight, Takam. It's not like someone said to me, what sort of shape's he going to be in with 2 weeks' notice? Don't worry about that. This guy's going to be in great shape. You'll see it on the scales. He's always fit, but he's been in camp. He's been preparing for Josh. And like Josh said, because of his position in the world heavyweight rankings, a lot of contenders focus and envisage a fight with Anthony Joshua because that's like the pinnacle. So Josh has never really thought about PULEV or Takam before he was fighting them. Do you know what I mean? But they look at Josh. They watch him all the time because you can't not see him. So they pick things up and they always give 10 or 15%, 20% more when they're in there with Joshua because it's a bigger occasion, it's a bigger fight. So I'm expecting a really tough fight. And every fight in the heavyweight division is a banana skin. But a fight against a guy like this, when you haven't really prepared for a guy like this, is a real banana skin. And I will breathe a big sigh of relief if we can get through this next week. I expect him to. I know he's a big favourite too, but I will still breathe a big sigh of relief when this is over because he can punch, this guy. He's going to throw a lot of shots. He's going to be extremely fit. He's going to be relentless, but he's also going to get hit very hard on the chin, which we know he's got an outstanding chin. So, I think it's going to be exciting.
We saw in Stuttgart there was some bad crowd trouble, terrible crowd trouble at Groves Cox, really bad in Warsaw, someone's died. Is this a coincidence, this sort of spate of trouble? Is it a growing problem in the sport?
I think it's a coincidence. I don't think, I hate to say we don't really have much trouble at our shows. Of course, you're going to have, you've got arenas of thousands and thousands of people, a lot of men, who are having a drink, who are enjoying themselves, who are dancing around, watching some boxing. There's going to be some testosterone flying around, and unfortunately, sometimes through the poor behaviour of some individuals, you get trouble. I don't think there's many promoters that work harder than us to ensure the safety of fans at events. The costs that we incur to operate that way are substantial, particularly at the Kell Brook Errol Spence fight, which happened 4 or 5 days after the Manchester disaster. We spend the money. Sometimes police are needed at fights. I think on Saturday the main problem you had was people were giving tickets after the football game and they'd been there all day. Then you had Tottenham fans coming in with George Groves' Chelsea fans. You need segregation sometimes, and that's just an understanding of big events in the market. For example, when Tom Stalker boxed Masha Dodd and it was Liverpool against Birkenhead, you put Masha's fans in one block, right over the other side of the arena, and you put Tom Stalker's in another block. It's not rocket science, but sometimes people don't think about that. So for us, the attitude that I have is that what the scenes that we saw at those shows that you mentioned kill your shows, and we can't afford to see those at our shows. So if there is any trouble, it needs to be dealt with quickly by our excellent security team and out the building. And like I said, touch wood, we're never not going to have any incidents, but we haven't had incidents like what we saw at the weekend. And maybe it'll be a situation where the police look at these events and say, we need a greater presence, and they're welcome. It's more cost to the promoters, but like I said, we pay up and make sure that the fan safety is paramount. And I would say to fans, come on, this is a great sport. Everyone can come and have a great night. Behave yourself. No one wants to have a tear up in a crowd and roll around on the floor and get injured and nicked and arrested, and in some cases fatalities. So let's respect the boxers, respect the events, all have a good time and go home safely.
Is there a little, maybe sometimes a lack of cohesion because there's security do like the ringside and the boxes and the backstage, and then the venue Is that, could that maybe, you know, should it be overseen by the same people?
It is, and sometimes, as often as possible, our security will work with the security from the venue to ensure that there is no problem. Now you have to understand, on the ringside security, these guys are paid very well and they're big men and they do a great job. Sometimes what you're referring to is not security, it might be stewards. And when a steward, not being funny, is there on 40, 50, 60 pound a night and it all kicks off in the crowd, the last thing they're going to be doing is diving in trying to separate it, you know? So
you need different proper security then, or police even?
Police is something, and we have police at many of our shows because it just adds, and the people ultimately, you know, if you misbehave you're going to get nicked. But you know, I would say again, and you know, we have seen 3 weeks on the spin. I don't think it's something that is an epidemic. I think it's just a bad coincidence the way it's happened. And when you look at the scenarios, firstly in Germany, the Turkish fans, and you know, and then at the George Groves fight, people were given free tickets. Maybe Tottenham fans coming out the football, going in, Chelsea fans, and you know, it's bad to see. And it, you know, anything that affects our sport, people want to feel like they're safe coming to events. And I'd like to say that I believe you're safe coming to our events, but we still need people to behave and make sure they, you know, respect the fighters, respect the shows, and enjoy themselves and go home safely at the end of the night.
Just one final one on it. When it all happened in football, like in the 70s and 80s and whatever else, they stopped allowing alcohol in the, you know, not allowed to sit in a seat and watch football while having a beer. Obviously, at boxing you can, and it's very much part of. Yeah, it's very much part of the thing.
Not in ring VIP, not in inner ringside, which is quite strange. But
do you think? Would you support?
The board can look at that. Because they're the ones that actually don't allow you to have a drink in inner ringside. It's different in America, by the way. They have waitress service coming around. But I think the main thing is does it really matter? Like,
do you not think it would help maybe banning alcohol?
If you can't have a drink at your seat, then you're just going to go into the concessions and have a drink anyway. And then you're actually going to have less atmosphere in the arena. There's pros and cons for all these things. Ultimately, people need to know that there's a zero tolerance policy, which is what we try and enforce on our shows. There's a police presence as well, but people have got to behave, you know. And ultimately, some people have a drink, get a little bit out of control, and misbehave. And if they misbehave and get nicked, they won't do it again, you know. But again, do you really want to go out and do all that, or do you want to go out and have a great time, watch a great sport, and go home with a smile on your face safely? That's what you want. So, you know, like I say, we'll be making sure that all the security provisions are in place at our show, police as well, to make sure that it's a safe night out, because that's what we try and deliver at MATCHROOM.